Welcome to Superhuman Customs. I'm Stephen Human. This is the channel where we just customize figures and we have fun. And today we've got an interesting one. So this is a request. This is actually for someone else. Mario, this is for you. He wanted a Neron figure, you know, the devil character from DC Comics. I have his first appearance from back in like 1995, 96, somewhere in there. And he wanted that. So he sent me this figure to do a Neron. It's not a figure that I would ever do for myself. I don't care about Neron, but for you, Mario, we're gonna do it. And what we're gonna use for the head is this Ultimate Warrior head, this one right here with the long hair. It'll be perfect. So let's go ahead and dive in and turn Parallax here into Neron. The first thing we're gonna do with Neron here is we're gonna pull off his head. I mean, because honestly, that's not Neron. That's Hal Jordan. And we are going to sand down these little symbols here on his pauldrons because obviously our good friend Neron does not have them. So it's gonna take a minute, sand these down, and then we'll move on to some milliput. So Neron has the circle here, so this is perfect. And the circle's obviously white and green. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's green. I want to see if I can find like a marble or something that I can cut in half that can go in there. We'll see, something plastic. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to take some milliput and we're just going to go around here. I'm going to thin it up a little bit more. And we're just going to kind of hook up here so that this gets thicker. And then have it kind of come down here too. So nice and simple, we're just going to go up and build up around here. So as you can see, I've got it molded in place and I'm just doing the part where I tap it with my fingers because that makes it shiny. You can actually see that in here it's already gotten shiny. And that's how I'm going to leave it. The more that I've learned how to do this, it doesn't require any sanding and it comes out nice and glossy, like that Red Robin. The cowl we did on him was just, it turned out perfect. So I'm just going to do that, get this so that it's shiny, and then we should be able to prime him. Now, he's mostly white and green with some yellow, but I'm gonna prime his entire body and then paint over the green with a different green and then the white. That way we'll have some consistency. He's looking good to start. Now, normally, I'd put a collar up here because Neron has a collar, but as you can see, this head is going to impede any collar. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to keep the one that we've got on there. And so once this is all dry, we can go ahead and prime. I'm actually going to take real quick, and he's got a couple of like dots of like jewels or something right here. I'm just going to put drops of fabric paint to let those dry before we prime. So this guy's moving along really nicely. Now we're just gonna sand a little bit down here. The head is actually not even attached yet. And I'm just gonna round some stuff out. Get it so this is a little bit smoother. Now I'm just going to go through and polish it a little bit with a different tool. You can see here. Oops, I gotta turn it on. And this just goes through and it takes off some of the rough edges and makes it ready for painting. So just gonna go through and do this, and then he'll be ready to prime. So the primary colors on Neron are green, white, and gold. So what I'm gonna do right here is I'm taking a silver and I'm going over all these areas that are gold. Because what I found is that when I do that, the gold turns out much, much better. I used to do a layer of yellow, and it just had no metallic to it at all. It looked like a toy. And by going through with the silver, it gives me that. So I'm just going to hit all these areas that are going to have any metallic to them and just make sure that they are popping. Now, classic Neron has a little like loincloth here in the middle. So I'm just going to glue in place. I just cut a little bit of strip from a cape. And before we paint over all of this stuff, I'm going to make sure that it's glued in place so that we can paint it green just along with everything else and make it so that it has a little gold on it and stuff. So there we go, just gluing it in place. And then we'll start with the paint. I'm just going to go through here with the white. Go along the edges, go on this side. And I'm just going to go for coverage right now. Just to get white in all these spots and not even worry if there's slop a little bit. You know, I just want to make sure that it gets in everywhere, and then I'll clean it up afterward. And yeah, just going to go through, get the white, and then we will move on to the dark green. And now the time has come for the dark green. And we're just going to go for coverage and get stuff in here, and then we'll go through for the detail work in a little bit. But you can see that this is just Vallejo dark green. There's nothing more special about it. I actually should probably use a smaller brush, I think, for this. So I'll use it up here and then switch to a smaller brush. But yeah, so we're just gonna cover all the green. We'll do all this up here and the back of the cape. The inside of the cape is actually red, so we'll do that in a little bit. That is one thing. It's not so. It's one of those things that you don't notice, like in a lot of some of these designs for figures or for characters. There's certain things where you're just like, wait, that was red? Like you don't notice it. And yes, the inside of his cape is red, so we will move to that here in a second. While the green's drying, I'm going to do the first coat of the flesh tone. Now this will take several coats because I want to go on nice and thin. This is more of a craft paint that I use, and so I want to go on in layers. Now I was tempted actually to go on in a brown first, and maybe I'll wish that I'd done that. But I'm just going to go on with flesh tone at first, go on nice and light, because he is blonde, and so that's one of the reasons why I don't want to go on with a darker tone, because he does have a very pale complexion. This Neron does. So I'll go on like so, and we will make him look super awesome. What I'm doing right now is I'm going through with a brown wash. I'm just going to go over some of the lines in here. So not with the dark one, just with a brown. And that will allow me to add a little bit of texture. And then we'll go through the black around the eyes and call it good. So this is just a little bit subtle, more subtle. And it will make him look a little bit more real, hitting some of these areas. And then as always, if you feel like you've gotten too much, wipe with your finger, or you can wipe with a piece of toilet paper. But you can see it'll start to take shape the way you want. All right, it's time for the gold. So let's go ahead and gold it up. As you can see, by having done the silver, I can do a much thinner coat of the gold. So the gold will look much more like real gold. Now we'll do the first coat of yellow for the hair. And obviously this is a very light, this Citadel yellow that I use, you guys know, it's very, very watery, and so we're just going to do a light coat. So you can see here how some of the green is a little bit blotchy, which is to be expected when you're going over a dark color. But what I always planned to do was to take my metallic green, just my craft paint, and go over the top. And that will even everything out and make it look like, I mean, he's metallic and we wanted to have that shine, but it will give it sort of a universal look. And you can see how I did it over here, and it helps to even things out. It'll probably need 2 coats just to really give it that sheen, and then we can go through and do the detail work, and that should get us that much closer to having Neron ready to go. So I add a little bit more of the brown wash to the hair, and now we're just going to go through and I'm going to dry brush on some white just to lighten it up a little bit. When I have highlights, so we'll have the yellow as the base, and then the dark in between, and then just a little bit of white. You just need to get a little bit on the brush, just a little. And that will allow you to make him look like he's been out in the sun a little bit. He's sun bleached. Now, one thing I want to do with Neron is kind of what I did with the Green Lanterns. I'm going to do an edge here with the glow-in-the-dark paint. It's going to give it, I mean, it's gonna lighten things up a little bit and add a little bit of contrast. But it's also going to add a three-dimensional barrier between the paint. And so I am going to do that on the green here, and probably in a couple of other areas right in here, just to play with things. So that's what I'm working on now. Nice and simple. And it adds just a nice, I really do like how this turns out, because it always kind of takes on the color of the base, so it'll be a little bit more green. And I really like how it turned out on those green lanterns, so I'm doing it again. And now you can see that I've got it in some good places. I am going to add it here in the center. I want there to be that. He's kind of got a green jewel for a lot of his appearances, and I want that here in the center. So there we go. Let's let it dry overnight and see how it looks. What I'm going to do is, over the white, I'm just going to take some silver and I'm going to dry brush it on. And this is going to be really subtle, but it's going to hit the edges. It's going to make this white just have a little bit more of a metallic sheen. It's similar to what I did with the green, but just with a bit of silver. So I'm going to go around all this and just hit the white. It'll add some metallic to it. And it's going to look way better doing this. Trust me. This is a good way to give this white a metallic. Obviously, we're gonna clear coat it at the end, but this will give us a good coat now. And if you want, you can actually go over the green too with this, which I think I might do, but not until after I answer that text and get this silver on here. I won't get texts for hours, and then the second that I start filming, I'll start getting texts. So if you ever want to have people text you, just start filming a video. What I'm going to do now is that there is like a golden line up here on this little loincloth that we added, and I'm going to use some black fabric paint up the center to make that, and then end it there. And then once that dries, we'll paint it gold. Now I'm using the black, obviously, because when I do the gold, the texture will be much better. As you guys know, when I've used the yellow in the past, it just looks too yellow, it looks too fake. So with the black, it'll end up looking more like the gold up here on top. Before we do a clear coat on this thing, I just want to put a little bit of wash in some of these areas. That's a bit too much. I'm going to have to dab at that. That's always my thing. I try and get it where it looks like there's none on the brush, and then it comes in that first one. There's just too much. So I'm just going to go through. See, that's more what I want right there. See how light that is? That's what we're after. Just want to hit some of these areas just to accent them against the white. And I think that it's going to just make them look more detailed and look a little bit cooler. So I'm just going to go through there. And this is just my regular game wash from Vallejo. Nice and simple. And dab if you need to. Because remember, on the white, it's going to stand out a lot. So you just got to be careful. But I'm going to go through some of these areas here and just do this so that he can have a little bit more life to him. That's what we want. We want our figures to look alive. This is how you do it. And now we're going to paint the inside of the cape. Now remember, the inside of the cape is red. It's a dark red. And so sometimes, it looks almost like a black, but it is red. So we're going to put a first coat down of this lighter red, and then we'll go over it in my nice darker red. So right now it's just about coverage. Just about moving the paint around, getting it so that this interior is red, and so we can move on. Honestly, when I'm filming sometimes and I'm trying to make it so that you can see things, it's not easy to paint stuff. I am not gonna lie. So sometimes that's why I move on really fast after shooting, because it's like, this is not comfortable to have my arm in this position and I can't really see very well. So I'm gonna turn off the camera and paint, and then you guys can see once it's done. Same deal with the back of the cape. While the red is drying, just gonna take the green, same dark green, that's literally the name of the paint, and I'm gonna go over the back of the cape. I think we're about done with this guy. We sprayed him with resin, we sprayed him with clear coat. And now I've made some resin here. So it's a mixed resin, and it is really, really powerful stuff. So I'm gonna put some in the head here, because I don't want this head going anywhere. Now this resin does not harden instantly. It takes about 5 minutes. And so I'm gonna have to hold it in place. I'm just gonna put a little bit around the hair and make sure that it gets in here in the head, so that when I go in and I've left this peg here, even though the peg is not big enough to hold the head on, the resin's gonna get all around that. And so this head is not going to come off ever, because it will wrap around that piece, it will get on the neck area. And so yes, this head is not going to be able to rotate, but I think we will be okay. So I'm going to sit it on there, and I'm going to push down, and I'm just going to have to hold them like this for about 5 minutes. And then we're done with Neron. So now, last thing, we're going to take some of this Citadel Striking Scorpion Green, which is just a highlight paint, and we're going to go over the top of the green so that it really has an emerald pop. And this is a very thin paint, so it doesn't take much. You just get it on there and you move it around, but you can see that it just really makes the green explode. And that's what we want. We want the shine to come through, but we also want it to just really, really shine. So that's what we're doing. Should be our last thing. A little of this goes a long way, and you can see the change immediately. And here we have Neron. Not a guy I ever expected to do, but I think he turned out pretty awesome. I certainly hope that Mario likes him. This was fun because it pushed me to do a few different things with Milliput, and I think that this turned out really nice up in here with the symbol and stuff. I'm happy with how he turned out, and the hair and all of that stuff. Let's take a look at a side-by-side, and you can see just how much this guy's progressed from where he was as a simple parallax figure. This parallax is a great base to use for all kinds of stuff. Obviously, you're not going to always match perfectly, because like Neron doesn't have the sort of lines and stuff here, but you're going to get close enough. And oftentimes, if you look at action figures, they use, the same bucks again and again, and that happens sometimes. And so it's okay if you do too. It doesn't need to be perfect. But of course, if you want it to be perfect, then you need to just buy 3 or 4 different figures and be willing to put them together. But this is a great Neron, and he's a fun character. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out StephenHuman.com for all of my novels, and I will see you next week with another custom.